All right, introduce yourself.
Angelo White, a.k.a. Barefoot Pookie.
You've been watching Mack videos?
Forever.
So how you been, man?
Hanging tough.
What you been up to?
Just doing my thing, trying to get back to our youth and doing a lot of gang activism and just trying to get back to our youth so they'll know the truth about their history.
You guys were Smaks in 1971, right?
Yes.
When did you guys meet the Inglewood Crips?
We met the Inglewood Crips in early 1971. Michael Christian and Lonnie Keelan. Michael Christian, Lonnie Keelan, Earl Cobbs, Cody Mosier, and all of them, which they had left from the west side and went to Monroe and to run track. And at Monroe, they were the first original West Side Crips, Inglewood West Side Crips, because Lonnie Keelan was supposed to have been the cousin to Raymond Washington, and also a former Baby Avenue.
Give me a roll call of some of the first Inglewood Crips.
Starting with Lonnie Keelan, Cody Brown, Earl Cobbs, Carl Mosier.
What about Mike Christian and Kenny Robinson and all of them?
Michael Christian, Kenny Robinson, Earl Cobbs, just a few. Just some of the main generals.
When did you guys first run across the chain gang?
We ran across the chain gang after we had a confrontation with the Inglewood Crips because their whole philosophy, the legacy of Raymond Washington, was to chitty chitty bang bang, Crips don't die, they multiply. So the expansion, that was the expansion. So they was trying to recruit all neighborhoods, to turn Crips.
All right. When you first heard of the chain gang, were you guys Smaks?
We had originally turned West Side Crips.
Okay, so you joined the Crips with Inglewood.
Right. Yes.
Up under Raymond Washington.
Yeah, we had an altercation at first. They was trying to recruit us. The Inglewood Crips was trying to recruit us to be along with them, so after that confrontation, that's when Raymond came into the picture. That was in June of 1971, and so we joined together. After that, we became the original West Side Crips.
Was there Compton Crips yet?
No Compton Crips yet.
When did Compton Crips come into the fold?
It had to be later on in 71, 72.
When you first heard of Mack Thomas or met Mack Thomas, where was he from?
Mack Thomas was actually from Compton, but it was a lot of talk about him being from 11-8.
And Carver Park, when did you first hear Carver Park?
Well, Carver Park, we all used to meet on the Smaks. The hood for the Smaks was Melvin Hardy's house, 113th and Dinker. And everybody used to come, from Compton, the east side, and come over to Melvin Hardy house. And we met Roy Tucker, Glue Baby, Chip, and at that particular time. And then Richard Carson, and they started hanging out with us.
What type of guy was Roy Tucker?
Roy Tucker was a pretty boy, stayed sharp, and he was down. He had a lot of influence over Compton, over the Compton Crips at that time.
So when they first started, they was just Compton Crips?
They were Compton Crips.
And later on, the Grannies joined, or is that just a name because of where they hung out at?
Yeah, well, the first they were Grandy and the Boot Hill. James Compton, and all of them. Mad Dog Bruno, Mr. X, which came from the West Side and moved to the Grandies. But the Grandies and the Boot Hills, they had, matter of fact, they had took over the Boot Hills. They had took over that, and the Grandies was actually the hangout where everybody used to meet at. Every day we used to leave from the Red House in 1973. We would leave from the Red House and stroll all the way to the Grandies to be with the Compton Crips, CC Riders.
So there's no doubt in your mind the West Side came before Compton.
Right.
So would it be safe to say it was just Crips, then Crips in Inglewood, and then West Side Crips, and that's when the name Inglewood Crips and East Side Crips come into play?
Inglewood, East Side, Inglewood, then the West Side Crips. We joined them.
And then Compton.
And then Compton.
What about Long Beach?
Long Beach came, well, it's all the Crip multiplication turf. It's the legacy of Raymond Lee Washington Sr. It's his legacy. Chili Bang Bang, Crips don't die, they multiply. So what we did, we expanded. We expanded with new name Crips, near and abroad. That's why we're global now.
All right, going back to the Chain Gang, were those guys older than you guys, or was they around the same age as Raymond and Melvin Hardy, or what?
Well, Tank was really strange about this mysterious Tank, who was supposed to have been the leader of the Chain Gang, you know, which had later transferred over to organized crime, and this is where they got all the artillery from, you know. So they were Chain Gang first, but the Monarchs, which were at Morningside and Monroe, was the rivals with the Inglewood Crips.
Okay, so Morningside had Chain Gang members who eventually became Inglewood family. How does that work?
Well, they became Inglewood family. Yes, after that they were Chain Gang, but their whole crew at Morningside, they were the Monarchs. All the athletes at Monarchs that came together, grouped together.
So do you know any of the guys that were Chain Gang before they turned family, or did you know any Dirty Dozens?
No Dirty Dozens. Never heard of them.
Heard of Jan Brewer?
Jan Brewer, he went to junior high, Henry Clay with us. Matter of fact, he might have been there when the Inglewood Crips came down to meet us at Henry Clay Junior High.
You heard of Sinbad?
Sinbad. The name don't sound strike a memory.
Dirty Red?
Dirty Red. I know Dirty Red real well.
Nasty Ed?
Nasty Ed real well.
What other guys you know from that era?
TJ. These was the riders. They were more active. All these guys were active. So pretty much everybody that went to Inglewood, Morningside, Inglewood, they were all together. You know, as under this mysterious tank of the Chain Gang.
Who was the West Side fighting out of Inglewood when y'all confrontation first started in 1972 or 71?
The Monarchs, the athletic guys at Morningside, because Morningside was a school that was big with track, and so people would send their children to Morningside for track, and just so happened that they sent some of Cody Brown, Earl Cobbs, and Mosier. They sent them to Morningside, and that's where they met up with Michael Christian and Lonnie Keelan and Kenny Robinson.
Okay, during this era that we're talking about, to be clear, late 71, early 72, what was your relationship to Denver Lane and Athens Park?
Well, they were our rivals. They were our first rivals, even before we got into it with the Inglewood Crips. We had to go out. We partied outside our hoods into the Dimmer Lane hoods and into the Acton Park hoods. And that was our relationship. So they were our first rivals.
But what didn't you get along with one of them in the beginning?
Well, we all went to school together. We went to junior high, Henry Clay together. You know,
With who?
with the Acton Park boys, and basically the Dimmer Lanes were kind of remote from that. But the Acton Park boys, we got along real well with them.
Okay. All right. So now, when 1972, the Chain Gang's first loss was Douglas Green. Do you remember that era?
Yes, I do.
And you know, you went away around that time. When you came back, was the Chain Gang still in existence?
No, the Chain Gang had turned into the family. The Monarchs, because the Chain Gang were a generation before, like in the 60s, mid 60s, late 60s, you know. So what they had did, they had evolved and expanded over to the family.
Okay, we keep hearing, like in Tookie's book, Tookie said the Chain Gang members were older. All these guys are your age and Raymond's age.
Mm-hmm.
So how come people think the Chain Gang was older and started before Chain Gang members actually say they started?
Well, reason why is because the Chain Gangs had started earlier, and like I say, in the 60s, mid 60s, late 60s. And which was their school turf was Morningside and Monroe. That's where they breeded their members from. So the Monroe and Morningside, they were all our age, which were the Monarchs, and they from Chain Gangs to family.
I don't know why we had decided to change the name or whatever, but we were kicking around names and what have you, and I threw the name family out there, and the committee, you know, everybody liked the sound of that, and you know, so we changed the name to the family. And it wasn't really, I don't think we had put Inglewood in front of it at that time. We were just the family.
Being that you was younger than some of the other guys, you was the youngest one in the crew from what I learned. I'm talking about the original West Sides and the East Side Crips. So you were active against guys older than you.
Yes.
And holding your own.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of guys from Inglewood say that you were the one to look out for. Why would they say that?
Well, because I was active and loyal, to what I believed in, and I believed in community revolution and progress. As we were servants of that to protect our communities and to protect ourselves and be down with the Crip Constitution that Raymond put out in 1972.
What was your relationship to Michael Christian?
Me and Michael Christian, we met and we got into a squabble. We squabbled that whole day when they came up to Henry Clay looking for us in 1971 to join, because that's Raymond's legacy, to expand Crips near and abroad. And we got into it. We didn't know what reason why the Inglewood Crips came up there. But what happened was, earlier they had met with Mike Conception. Mike Conception had told them to come up to Henry Clay at 245 and we would join up with them. But Mike Perception never told us anything about that. So when they came up there, you know, one of the Smaks came down and said they up there. There's some Crips up there looking for the Smaks. So that started the indication of fight, and when we started fighting, it was too many of us, basically the whole school, you know. And after that, then that's when Raymond came.
Michael Christian was another rider of theirs, right?
Yeah, Michael Christian was a co-founder of the Inglewood Crips, him and Lonnie Keelan.
But his name was big like yours as far as kicking up dust, right?
Yeah, but yes.
Was he big when you guys had your altercation?
He was big enough. He was a big youngster. He was a big youngster, and with that, with me and him being together, you know, we actually co-founded and kicked off the Crip multiplication and turf off a new name, Crips Near and Abroad, in 1972 when Raymond was convicted and arrested for conspiracy of second-degree murder.